The Asics Novablast 4 versus the Asics Novablast 3. What's changed? Is it still any good? And is it going to be the right shoe for you? You clicked on this video for one of two reasons. One, you own the Asics Novablast 3 and you thought it was an amazing shoe. It was one of your favorite shoes and you're wondering, what are the changes in the 4 and is it still the right shoe for you? Or, like me, you found the Asics Novablast 3 to be challenging, to say the least, and you're wondering if the changes in the 4 make it a shoe that might be viable for you. Well, that's what I'm going to break down in this video, and without further ado, let's jump in. As always, the best place to start here is the specs, and between these two shoes, honestly, on paper, the specs are the same. Now, Asics has joined the rest of the running shoe industry, and they are now including the rubber on the outsole and the insole in their stack heights. So that gives the Novablast 4 a 41.5 mil stack height in the heel and a 33.5 mil stack height in the forefoot for an 8 mil drop. Now, the Novablast 3 was originally reported at a much lower stack height because, again, they didn't include the rubber or the insole. But according to Running Warehouse, which I trust, the specs that they had for the Novablast 3 for the longest time were 41 mil of foam in the heel and 33 mil of foam in the forefoot with an 8 mil drop. Now, that extra 0.5 that Asics is reporting, you're never going to feel it. Honestly, stack height wise, these are the same shoe. As you can see from the weight, the Novablast 4 is 8.9 ounces or 255 grams. And in fact, for my two shoes, I get one at 255 grams and one at 257 grams. So that gives my two shoes 256 grams. So pretty spot on to what Asics is reporting. And again, this is for the US men's size 9 reference size that's used everywhere. And then for the Novablast 3, you're looking at 8.7 ounces or 247 grams, which honestly, it's a little lighter, but you're not going to feel it on your foot. These shoes are lightweight and they feel lightweight. You're not going to feel any difference in weight between the two. Now, the Novablast 4 has FF Plus Eco foam in the midsole, and there's a much more aggressive toe rocker and heel bevel. So there are changes to the Novablast 4, but a lot of it is in the molding of the midsole, not the specs and not the stack height. With the Asics Novablast 3, we have FF Blast Plus in the midsole, not the Eco, just Blast Plus. And I would call it a modern heel-to-toe rocker, and until the Novablast 4 came out, I would actually call it a fairly extreme rocker. But compared to the 4, the 3 is very mild. So let's talk about the fit in the upper. Now, on the Novablast 3, I always felt this shoe fit and looked very large on my foot, but I never had any problems with how it actually fit in my foot. I never had lockdown issues. The heel collar and the Achilles flare here, or lack of Achilles flare, this would cut into my Achilles, at least give me some insane blisters, but I never had any heel slip issues. Lockdown was fine. I think the tongue in this shoe was a joke, this super stretchy neoprene that frankly just didn't do anything and gave me massive lace bite. And as far as width of the shoe, I would say this was not a wide shoe, but a generous width, but the toe volume in this shoe was a little low for my taste. Moving to the Novablast 4, the upper has changed. It's now a woven upper, but honestly, it's still a very smooth, very soft, very plush upper. You're not really going to feel any difference between the 3 and the 4 as far as how the upper feels. What I will say is there is a proper heel counter in this shoe now, so the Achilles torture that the 3 would give me is no longer here. Lockdown is still fine. I would say the eyelet chain in this shoe is a little too complicated, so I can never really get the type of lockdown that I want, which is super tight. But I'm not having any, heel slip issues. My foot's not moving around the shoe. I'm getting a good lockdown. It's just not as tight as I want it to be. The tongue in the shoe is significantly improved. It's still the neoprene material. There's still a little stretch to it, but it is not as thin and just flimsy as what was in the 3. It's a much better tongue. The width of the shoe, I'm going to say, is the same or a tiny bit more narrow than the 3, but I believe it's the same last that the shoes are built on. So the 3 and 4 have the same last. Where I think the difference is in width here on the 4 is the new material, this woven material and the way it's sort of sits into the midsole, and we'll get into the midsole. I just think there's a tiny bit less room here in the width. And I'm talking a few millimeters. If the 3 fits you well, the 4 is going to fit you just fine. If the 3 was too narrow, this is going to be probably a little bit tighter. Though I will say this woven material feels like it does have a little bit more give to it. So maybe it will stretch in. It's not a deal breaker. It's not a huge difference. And there probably will be a wide version of this shoe available. So consider that. The other change, though, is I would say the volume in the toe box on the 4 is better, meaning these little ridges that you can see, I think, keep the fabric off the top of your foot, which gives my toes more room to sort of move around and splay and do what they need to do. Not that the 3 was ever tight, but this one's just that much looser, that much more forgiving. It feels really nice. So between the two uppers, I think this is probably the better upper, even with this overcomplicated eyelet chain. But I think this one feels a little bit better to me, and it feels a little bit better on the foot. And I will also say that the 4, even though it does feel like this is a bigger shoe, doesn't look or feel huge on my foot. I don't know why the 3 always felt ridiculously large on my foot. This shoe doesn't feel that way. It feels normal. In fact, I would say it feels and looks a little bit small sometimes depending on the angle you're looking at. So overall, I prefer the way the 4 feels and fits. Back to the Novablast 3, and let's talk about this midsole. Now, since the beginning of the Novablast series, Asics has really been playing with trying to make this shoe more stable. The 1 was bouncy and fun, but it got a lot of comments that it was not very stable. So in the 2, I think they stepped the stability a bit too far, took a lot of what people loved about the Novablast 1 out. And in the 3, I think they found a happy middle ground, at least in the heel. Because I think the sculpting in the heel of the Novablast 3 is really well done. It seems like a lot of the stability that the Asics designers and engineers focused on in the 3 was in the heel, to make this a more stable shoe in the heel for landing on the heel, for heel strikers, to move them into the forefoot. So it's a beautiful heel, really well done. Stability in this for heel strikers or just walking around is absolutely no problem. It's brilliant. I think it's one of the best heel striking shoes you can get. But, and here's where my big problems came with the 3, is that if the forefoot in this shoe felt disjointed from the heel, there was a lot of design and engineering in this heel, but in the forefoot, it just felt like they kind of gave up. They just sort of phoned it in on the forefoot because the forefoot could feel flat. And in fact, a lot of people would talk about this shoe feeling very slappy, and I experienced that too. The other big problem I had with this shoe was this trampoline effect, which is, a marquee element of the Novablast series. But in this shoe, this trampoline effect always poked into my foot. No matter where I was in this shoe, I always felt it. As a forefoot striker especially, I always felt it, and it always annoyed me. I never liked how this felt. There were a few kilometers, probably around 70, 80 kilometers, where this sort of disappeared for me, but it came back. And in fact, I hadn't run in this shoe for a while, but I did take it out last week for a run just to refresh myself with this shoe, and I felt the trampoline effect, and I hated it. So this shoe always to me was a great heel and just sort of a meh forefoot. And I think FF Blast Plus foam in this shoe suffered a bit because of this forefoot. The design of the sidewalls and the medial and lateral side of the shoe just, I don't think, channeled the foam very much. So when you landed forefoot in this shoe, the FF Blast Plus foam, which is a squishy foam, could just sort of squish out to the sides. And it would feel very mushy. And I just did not like that about this shoe. But moving to the Novablast 4, a lot of that is fixed. I would say all of that is fixed. We still have a great heel in this shoe. And in fact, I would say the heel's even more beefy, and heel strikers are going to like this shoe even more because there's just more stability in this shoe. Meaning the sculpting in the heel is even more, and they widened this platform, I think 5 or 6 mil, to just give a little bit more stability. They've also taken the heel bevel and they pushed it back just a little bit, and they've added more to it so that if you're a heel striker, landing on the shoe is going to feel very smooth, There's going to be a lot more room back here to land. And we have a decoupled heel on the medial and lateral sides of this shoe, which is even deeper. This channel is much deeper. So again, it's going to absorb, it's going to center your shoe and get you into the midfoot of the shoe. And now, unlike the Novablast 3, I think there's been a lot of design and engineering in the midfoot and forefoot of this shoe, which I think is brilliant. As you can see, they've increased the toe rocker, which I think actually works really well. That seems to be a hallmark that Asics is going for now in 2024, is much more extreme toe rockers, but it works beautifully in this shoe. They've also increased the toe spring a little bit in this shoe, and the toe spring is how much the area of the midsole under your toes, right under the insole, curves up. So they've increased that slightly, but this shoe is so flexible now that you're not necessarily going to feel that. So I wouldn't consider that a problem, especially if you have limited toe mobility. But what this new forefoot allows for is, once you've engaged midfoot and especially forefoot, again, as a forefoot striker, there's now a pocket up here. There's now a zone that feels really nice to land in and really powerful to toe off. Additionally, we still have the trampoline effect, and they've increased the grooves around it, but I'm going to say I don't feel this. I have over 50 miles now in this shoe, and I've not felt this once, at least poking into the bottom of my foot. I do feel it the way it was designed to be felt, where I land and I'm toe off. I am feeling a little extra something on toe off from this, and it feels really nice. And I think that's what it was designed to do. Additionally, they have widened the forefoot of the shoe, again, about 5 or 6 mil, and you can see that there's a tiered or even terraced design to this now. So what these terraces in the forefoot really allow for is, I think they channel the foam in a much better way than what the Novablast 3 did, in that it's not allowing the foam to sort of mush out to the sides. It really channels where the foam can go. It makes this shoe feel still soft, still squishy. This is FF Blast Plus. It is Eco, and Eco has 20% biomaterial in it. But I will say Eco feels a little bit firmer, and some of that is the sculpting of the tiers here in the forefoot. But this just allows for a soft foam, a squishy foam, but it doesn't feel mushy. Instead, it feels bouncy to me. And combined with the trampoline effect, it feels great. It works really well. The other thing is that there's a lot of care on this outsole as far as the channeling. Again, the decoupled groove down the middle, and then this channel that's around the trampoline effect, that is all about trying to center your foot. So you're getting the most out of this, and you're getting the best possible toe off, regardless if you're a heel striker, a midfoot striker, or a forefoot striker. This shoe is channeling you forward in a very nice way. Back to the Novablast 3, and let's talk about this outsole. Again, this is an all black one, so it's really hard to see this, but I think one of the biggest complaints of this shoe was this outsole. There just was not a lot of rubber on here, and what rubber was on here just was not grippy at all. This shoe was fine for road running. It was okay for slippery, wet running, but anything beyond that, dirt, gravel, anything else, this shoe just did not work. And I think that was a problem that, to me, took a little bit of the versatility away from the shoe that a lot of people wanted this shoe to have. Moving back to the 4, now they have added a lot more material in this outsole. Not only is there thicker rubber, and this is Asics' AHAR rubber, but there's more tread to the rubber, and the rubber is more prominent over the foam. They learned a lot from the way the Superblast pattern works, and they've improved it a lot. Now, this shoe still is not the perfect outsole. It's still a very road-focused outsole, but it's much better, and I've not had any problems on road and wet road and leaves and slippery stuff in this shoe. And I actually think that this outsole design is really, again, the ultimate expression of what they've been trying to do with the Novablast outsole, in that they're giving you rubber where you need it, and they're leaving exposed foam where you don't need the rubber. So you're getting a very compliant foot strike. The way the shoe feels on the ground is very compliant. And that's very similar to all foam outsole shoes. Think of some Hokas where they don't have a lot of rubber on the outsole. This shoe gives you a blend of both, where you're getting the protection of the rubber, but you're getting that compliant feel of exposed foam. And it works really well again. So what's the verdict here? Which is the better shoe? Well, for me, it's hands down this shoe. Like I said, I did not like the 3, but I love the 4. I am enjoying running in this shoe extensively, and it's one of my favorite shoes that I've run in. And in fact, I'm also the type of runner who does not like overly soft max stack rockered shoes. I tend to avoid those as much as I can, but this is probably the best one I've ever run in, and it's a shoe that I'm actually running in quite a bit because it feels so good. Now, does that mean the 4 is better than the 3? Well, yes. For me, it does, but for you, it may not, because I know this shoe had a lot of fans. And the one thing I will say that differs between these two shoes is that based on all the rocker and the foam and a lot of the engineering that's now on the forefoot of this shoe is a very rolly shoe. This shoe is still rolly, but because there's less rocker, especially in the forefoot of the shoe, I think this shoe still probably is a little bit more versatile, where you could probably do a larger range of faster running. Now, I've done half marathon pace or up to half marathon pace in this shoe, and it'll do it. It's not my first choice, but for a shoe for long runs where I am needing to do some marathon pace or half marathon pace mixed in with some easy running, this shoe will do that really well. This shoe would do it really well too, but for me, for my foot, it didn't have the range that this shoe does. But again, I know a lot of people felt this shoe did. So I would say this shoe is slightly nimbler, and if you liked the feel of this shoe, this is going to feel different, but not bad. It's just you may want to have both of them because, again, this is a little bit more nimble, this is a little bit more rolly. So it's going to really come down to which one you prefer. And like I said, I just did not get on with the Novablast 3. I tried for 100 miles. And if you want to see that journey, I'll put links to a couple videos in the description that kind of go through that journey for me. But I'm enjoying the 4, and I think the 4 is a brilliant shoe. And I'm excited that it is sort of a starting point for what Asics will be releasing in 2024. Now, as of the recording of this video, towards the middle of November 2023, there are a lot of deals on this shoe right now. You'll be able to find the Novablast 3 for some insane deals. So if you loved this shoe, this is the time to stock up on this shoe and enjoy this shoe for what it is. But know that when you pick this one up, when you pick the 4 up, it's going to feel different, but you're still going to enjoy it. I promise you, it is a very good shoe. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you like this type of content, consider subscribing. You'll see more content like this pop up in your feed. If not, drop a like on this video because it helps this channel continue to grow, which I always appreciate. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.